Different languages follow different rules when dividing utterances into syllables. Native English speakers tend to use English rules of syllable structure when speaking Spanish, and this contributes to their foreign-sounding accent. Moreover, most dialects of English make audible separations between certain words with something called a glottal stop, something not done in Spanish. The absence of an audible separation between words is one thing that can make Spanish spoken at an ordinary pace tricky for native English speakers to understand. And including a glottal stop in their Spanish is something native English speakers do that contributes to their foreign-sounding accent. Today's discussion is all about Spanish syllabification, rules for structuring Spanish syllables, how those rules affect Spanish pronunciation, and how glottal stops, or their absence, affect both the listening comprehension and accent of native English-speaking students of Spanish. Let's begin by reviewing some basic concepts and terminology. An open syllable is one that ends in a vowel, and a closed syllable is one that ends in a consonant. Unlike in English, in Spanish only a vowel can act as the nucleus of a syllable. This means that every Spanish syllable must have at least one vowel in it, and a vowel is always the central sound in the syllable. The 5 Spanish vowels can be thought of as belonging to one of 2 categories, strong or weak. This classification is useful for understanding diphthongs, triphthongs, hiatuses, and the use of written accent marks. For purposes of phonetics, Spanish considers CH, L, and R to each be a single consonant, and the standard pronunciation of X to be 2 consonants. Also, for purposes of phonetics, silent letters don't count in any way. In formulating rules for syllable structure, silent H doesn't count as a consonant, and silent U doesn't count as a vowel. U with 2 dots over it is not silent and does count as a vowel. There are different terms for designating vowels in diphthongs and triphthongs, but we're not going to get into that in this video. Here we'll refer to all of them as just vowels. Now let's take a look at rules for structuring Spanish syllables. Spanish prefers open syllables, so whenever a single consonant appears between vowels, that consonant is grouped with the following vowel, not the preceding one. For example, the word casa, in which the consonant S is located between 2 A's, would be divided up into the syllables ka, sa, where both syllables are open, and not kas, a, where the first syllable would be closed. And the word mirada would be divided into the syllables mi, ra, da, where all the syllables are open, and not mir, a, da, or mi, rad, a, where some of the syllables would be closed. This principle applies to any word in which a single consonant appears between vowels. Pause the video and study these examples. Any combination of a bilabial, labiodental, or velar consonant followed by a liquid, or a dental consonant followed by R, is inseparable and is treated as a single consonant. Any of these combinations is grouped together with the following vowel and not the preceding one. So in a word like abre, the B and R are inseparable and are grouped with the E. A-bre, 2 open syllables, and not ab-re, where the first syllable would be closed. Pause the video and look at these additional examples. All other combinations of 2 consonants between vowels are separable, and the first consonant is grouped with a preceding vowel, while the second consonant is grouped with a following vowel. And for the first time, we see a rule that produces a closed syllable. So, for example, the word arco is divided up into the syllables ar-co, rather than arc-o, or a-rco. Pause the video and observe these other examples. In sequences of 3 or more consonants, if any of the consonants comprise one of the inseparable groups we've already discussed, then they're grouped together with the following vowel, while the other consonant or consonants are grouped with a preceding vowel. So the word intruso, which contains the inseparable pair tr, is divided into the syllables in-tru-so. Additionally, in sequences of 3 or more consonants, ns and bs are inseparable and are grouped together. So consta is divided into the syllables cons-ta, rather than con-sta. And obstinado is obs-ti-na-do, rather than ob-sti-na-do. These last 2 cases probably seem counterintuitive to you, because here, for the first time, we're grouping 2 consonants at the end of a syllable and only 1 at the beginning of the next syllable. Also, in English, ns and bs do not form inseparable pairs. In English, similarly ordered consonants separate differently into syllables. Still, the rule for Spanish is that in sequences of 3 or more consonants, ns and bs are inseparable. Pause the video and examine these examples. A strong vowel and a weak vowel together in any order form a diphthong. A diphthong is pronounced as a single syllable with a strong vowel acting as the nucleus. So the word aire is made up of the syllables ai, re. I have a whole video dedicated to all the Spanish diphthongs and their correct pronunciation in my older videos playlist if you want more information on that topic. Observe these additional examples of words with diphthongs. Two weak vowels side by side also form a diphthong with a second vowel acting as the nucleus of the syllable. So the word viudo is divided up this way, viu-do. Observe these other examples. A triphthong is comprised of two weak vowels and a strong vowel in the sequence weak, strong, weak. Triphthongs are pronounced as a single syllable with a strong vowel acting as the nucleus of the syllable. A very large majority of Spanish triphthongs are conjugations of verbs in the vosotros form. So, for example, the word envidiais is broken up into three syllables, envidiais. Observe these other examples of words with triphthongs. Two strong vowels side by side constitute what is called a hiatus, and each of the vowels acts as the nucleus of its own syllable. So the word idea is divided up as idea. Observe these additional examples. One interesting thing to note is that in casual speech, many hiatuses are reduced to diphthongs, especially in Latin American Spanish. It's an important topic, and I think it merits a video of its own, so I won't go into it anymore here. Just know that many hiatuses reduce to the most similar sounding diphthong. When a weak vowel and a strong vowel are adjacent, and there's an accent mark over the weak vowel becomes strong, and the pair behaves like a hiatus. So they separate into different syllables, each vowel acting as the nucleus of its own syllable. So, for example, the word decía is broken up into the syllables de-si-a. Check out these other examples. According to some authors, there are regional differences in syllabification in some parts of Latin America, especially Mexico, due to the influence of indigenous languages, but I'm not going to go into regional differences in this video. The rules we've described so far are the ones that are common to all dialects of Spanish, and I think they're more than enough for this introductory video. When speaking our native language, we English speakers tend to insert an audible separation between certain words with something called a glottal stop, which is represented with this symbol that looks a bit like a question mark. A glottal stop is produced by pinching the back of the throat closed, thereby cutting off the airflow. You can observe the glottal stop by pronouncing the exclamation, uh-oh. A glottal stop precedes each of the syllables, causing them to be pronounced with a little burst of air. And importantly, the glottal stop produces an audible separation between the two syllables, uh-oh. Depending on the dialect of English, the glottal stop may also be used as a variant of certain phonemic sounds. We're not going to get into the details of that in this video. What matters to us here is that the glottal stop is used in almost all dialects of English to audibly separate certain words and break up utterances into smaller pieces. And when used this way, we English speakers are usually completely unaware that we're using a glottal stop at all. Why am I bringing this up in this video? How does this relate to the study of Spanish? Well, Spanish does not employ glottal stops pretty much at all, and certainly not to audibly separate words. There are certain minority dialects or sociolects of Spanish that employ the glottal stop in very limited contexts, but there is no dialect of Spanish that uses it broadly to audibly separate words the way we do in English. One significant consequence of this fact is that in ordinary spoken Spanish, words just run together. Whole phrases are pronounced as if they were a single long run-on word. This can make it challenging for native English-speaking students of Spanish to understand native speech, even when they know all the words the speaker is using, even if they would have had no problem reading and understanding the same phrases. It can also make it challenging for students who've become accustomed to one dialect of Spanish to understand some other dialect. Differences in pronunciation of individual sounds and differences in rhythm and intonation seem greater when there's no audible separation between any of the words. With regard to today's video on syllabification, the absence of glottal stops contributes to something you hear me say in a lot of my videos, that Spanish rules of pronunciation apply across word boundaries. And what's true for previous pronunciation topics that we've covered is also true for syllabification. These rules apply across word boundaries. For example, if we take the word pair los hombres and break it up into syllables, we get los hombres. Observe that phonetically the S of los comes at the beginning of the second syllable of the utterance, which is the first syllable of hombres, exactly as if the two words were one single word, los hombres. And this principle applies not only to word pairs, but larger phrases, whole sentences, utterances of any length between pauses. It also applies to all Spanish pronunciation rules I know of. You hear me say it in most of my videos. Spanish pronunciation rules apply across word boundaries. Now, native English-speaking students of Spanish would probably pronounce this word pair as los hombres, with S coming at the end of los and a glottal stop at the onset of the second word. And while that would certainly be understandable to native Spanish speakers, it wouldn't sound quite right to them. More significantly, in other instances, the use of a glottal stop between words may prevent English speakers from properly applying pronunciation rules that apply across word boundaries, giving their Spanish a foreign-sounding accent, even when they're capable of pronouncing individual sounds and even individual words correctly. This habit of using glottal stops to separate words can be very difficult for native English speakers to break, because we don't do it consciously. We don't think of the glottal stop as an actual sound in this context. Since we're not aware we're doing it, it doesn't occur to us that we should stop doing it, and we don't really know what we can do to stop doing it. My advice to students is this: read out loud in Spanish a little every day. Read slowly and carefully and pay attention to joining your words together fluidly. Don't use glottal stops to separate words in Spanish, and practice applying pronunciation rules across word boundaries. If you've forgotten how to do that for a particular rule, go back and watch the relevant video and refresh your memory. By now I have a video on pretty much every phonological rule in Spanish. Just like anything else, you can do this. It'll just require a little thoughtfulness and practice. Alright, this is the conclusion of our discussion on Spanish syllabification. If you've learned something from this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. And as always, if you have any questions regarding the Spanish language, please ask in the comments of any of my videos. I'd be happy to consider making a special video to answer your question.